Star Trek Generations' weirdest scene was actually brilliant. Star Trek Generations is one of the most polarizing films in the franchise's long cinematic history. Positioned as a bridge between the original series and the next generation, the film had to accomplish the Herculean task of uniting two legendary captains, Kirk and Picard, while ushering the baton from one era of Trek to the next. But amid all the explosions, philosophical musings, and tragic deaths, there is one moment that has consistently puzzled fans: the Nexus Ribbon fantasy sequence. Particularly, the scene where Captain Jean-Luc Picard imagines himself surrounded by a Victorian-style family Christmas in a dreamlike haze of sentimental joy. At first glance, it's a jarring departure from the film's tone. The stately Starfleet captain, known for his stoicism and introspective gravitas, is suddenly thrown into a saccharine holiday tableau complete with children he never had, a wife we never see again, and a twinkle in his eye we've never witnessed before. To many viewers, it felt strange, out of character, overly sentimental, and disconnected from the film's otherwise action-driven narrative. But here's the twist: that scene, as weird as it seems, is secretly brilliant. The Nexus isn't just a plot device, it's a mirror. To understand why the Nexus fantasy scene works, we have to understand what the Nexus actually represents. The Nexus, as Guinan explains it, is not just a temporal anomaly, it's a reality shaped by your deepest desires. It's a personal heaven, tailor-made by your own mind, constructed from longing, regret, and the intoxicating possibility of second chances. When Picard enters the Nexus, it doesn't just offer him peace. It offers him what he subconsciously wants most, even if he doesn't fully admit it to himself: a family. Not a starship crew, not endless diplomatic missions, just a quiet moment of belonging. That's what makes the scene so powerful. Picard's fantasy isn't flashy. It's not him commanding a fleet or debating with philosophers. It's mundane. It's human. And that contrast between the man we think we know and the man he might have been is precisely why the moment hits so hard. Christmas in the Nexus, a window into Picard's soul. From a purely visual and tonal perspective, the Christmas scene is unlike anything else in Star Trek Generations. The warm lighting, soft focused cinematography, and cozy setting feel more at home in a Hallmark holiday movie than a sci-fi epic. But it's intentional. It isn't real. It's how Picard imagines joy. And that's what's so unsettlingly perfect about it. The artificiality of it all is part of the design. Everything is slightly off, not fake, exactly, but uncanny. His children are idealized. His home is idyllic. The scene teeters on the edge of uncanny valley sentimentality, and that's where the brilliance lies. It feels too good to be true because it is. This dream sequence isn't supposed to be comfortable for the audience. It's supposed to feel like a lie Picard is telling himself. The joy is hollow, the warmth too pristine. And it's only when he realizes that he doesn't belong in this artificial peace that he can make the heroic decision to leave it. Picard's regret, hidden in plain sight. Throughout the next generation, Picard has always been a man of restraint. He's the intellectual captain, the moral compass, the diplomatic face of Starfleet. But buried deep beneath that composed exterior is a man who made sacrifices that often go unspoken. The life of a Starfleet captain doesn't leave much room for a family. And over the years, Picard has buried that longing beneath duty and professionalism. In this brief moment in Generations, we see that longing unmasked. The fantasy doesn't just reveal Picard's desire, it reveals his regret. In the wake of his brother and nephew's death in a fire on Earth revealed earlier in the film, Picard is already grappling with the realization that his family line may die with him. The Nexus responds to that unresolved trauma, showing him what he might have had: a wife, children, Christmas mornings filled with laughter. It's not merely a sentimental scene. It's emotional reckoning disguised in ribbons and ornaments. Brilliance through contrast. Kirk's Nexus fantasy. When juxtaposed with Captain Kirk's own Nexus fantasy, riding horses in a mountain cabin and reuniting with his long-lost love, Antonia, the genius of the Christmas scene becomes even clearer. where Kirk's fantasy feels natural and earned a solitary man returning to the one thing he never allowed himself, love. Picard's fantasy feels like a surreal intrusion into his carefully controlled life. It shows how different these men are. Kirk regrets giving up love. Picard regrets never trying to find it. Kirk longs to return to the life he gave up. Picard realizes he's never had that kind of life to begin with. Their Nexus fantasies work as two sides of the same coin. And that narrative symmetry, quietly embedded into the weirdest scene in the movie, is masterful writing. The scene's legacy, misunderstood yet pivotal. Over the years, the Christmas Nexus scene has been mocked, memed, and maligned. It's been called cheesy, jarring, and tonally inconsistent. But in hindsight, it's one of the few moments in Star Trek Generations that fully embraces the emotional possibilities of the story. Science fiction often gets caught up in technobabble and plot mechanics. But this scene doesn't try to explain or justify itself. It doesn't care about warp cores or time travel. It's raw, emotional, and deeply uncomfortable because it forces us to see our hero as a person rather than a symbol. And isn't that what good science fiction should do? Why it had to be so weird? If the Nexus had shown Picard something expected, like commanding a better ship, winning a great battle, or receiving galactic recognition, it would have been forgettable. But by showing him something so unexpected and deeply human, the film challenges our assumptions. It makes us ask questions. Who is Jean-Luc Picard really? What has he given up? What does he wish he could reclaim? And in doing so, the film earns its emotional stakes. Because the decision to leave the Nexus doesn't just mean leaving behind comfort, it means confronting everything Picard has suppressed for decades. It sets up Star Trek, Picard decades in advance. Here's the kicker. The emotional threads planted in this scene don't just enrich generations. They echo into the future. In Star Trek, Picard, we see an older, more reflective Jean-Luc grappling with many of the same themes: family, legacy, regret. His desire to leave something behind, to connect on a personal level, and to reckon with the choices he made as a younger man are direct continuations of the moment he spends in the Nexus. The fantasy wasn't just a one-off. It was a seed. And the shows and films that followed eventually nurtured that seed into a full character arc. Final thoughts. Weird and wonderful. Yes, the Christmas scene in Star Trek Generations is strange. It doesn't feel like Star Trek. It's slow. It's sentimental. It's hauntingly sweet. But that's what makes it brilliant. It's a rare moment where the franchise dares to be emotionally surreal rather than rational and grounded. It trades phasers and starships for ornaments and candlelight, and in doing so, reveals something far more important than any interstellar battle: the soul of its captain. The scene reminds us that even the strongest among us carry silent regrets. That even legends have unspoken dreams. Glow of a holiday hearth that never was.